So today we're going to talk about sight measuring, which is one of the more important things to learn from this class. It's a good way of making our proportions more accurate, making them more lifelike. So we're going to be talking about capturing a basic unit. That's the first thing that we're going to be having to figure out how to do. So we're going to have a drawing stick. We're going to be maybe given one in class, maybe you're using a pencil, and you're going to go capture your basic unit. So that unit is going to be what we measure everything from. So I'm going to go stick out my arm. I'm going to have my arm locked so my elbow's not going to be bent. I'm going to close one eye and I'm going to find my basic unit. So I'm going to put the top of my pencil or drawing stick on the top of what my basic unit's going to be. In this case, it's going to be that little orange. And the bottom is going to be the bottom of the basic unit. And that's where my thumb's going to go. Okay? So my basic unit's going to be that tall. It's going to be as tall as the orange. So what I can do from there is I can go and I can start to measure out stuff. I can measure vertically. So maybe I want to figure out how tall those two cups are. So I'm going to start measuring down, and maybe I would be making tick marks on my paper when I'm drawing. You'll kind of see this when you see the sped up video of me drawing here in a few minutes. So I can go measure vertically. So I measured down, and I found out that the two cups are 4.5 oranges tall. Okay, so if I'm drawing an orange really small on a piece of paper, the two cups are going to be 4.5 oranges tall. If that orange is huge, if I'm drawing a mural, they're going to still be 4.5 oranges tall because we're dealing with proportions, one thing to another. They're not going to be as tall as the pencil. They're going to be as tall as whatever you make that orange on your piece of paper. So hopefully that's making sense. It will once you start drawing. But I've found out that relatively, 2 cups are about as big as 4.5 oranges. Okay, so I can measure lots of things horizontally, right? I could measure one cup versus another cup. I find out that the cup on the right, while it looks like it's the same size, just because of some perspective issues, that it's actually a little smaller than the other cup. I can measure horizontally and find out the widths of things. So that orange is not a perfect circle. Maybe I want to see how fat he is. So I can go and take my basic unit, turn my arm to the right, and figure out that he's not too wide, but he's like 1 3/4 wide. I could measure out the width of my cups and find out that those are actually too wide. One thing that I will often do if I'm drawing an object and it's a little complicated, I will first find out how wide it is, how tall it is, and I'll make a box. Okay, so I got this box. This is where the cups would be on my piece of paper. I know how tall they're going to be. I might make a little axis line. If I do that, it's going to be easier to draw something that's symmetrical. And then my next step would be I would go and draw out my cups. I did this in Photoshop. It looks a little crude, but you draw out your cups and you could get rid of the box, and then in theory, you'd have a really nice looking set of cups there. They'd be all symmetrical and whatnot. Okay. I can use my basic unit to measure, in between things. So I can find out the space in between objects, because sometimes we have the objects, they're the right size, but they're not in the right location on the page. So you can measure in between objects. So I found out that my basic unit is about the distance between those two cups. We can use it to find baselines. Sometimes people have a hard time locating where things are going to be placed vertically on a composition. Everything sometimes might be very even looking. So I can go find where my baseline is going to be at. So that's where that object's going to rest on the ground. That's what's called a baseline. I can extend that out to go find the other baseline. So I want to find the red baseline. I know where the blue baseline is. So I'm going to go extend out that line, take my basic unit, and measure out how far that is. And for some weird reason, a lot of things are just been one basic unit in this image. Okay? So those are some tricks. We can measure horizontally. We can measure vertically. We're thinking about how one thing relates to another, trying to measure those out. We can't measure diagonally. And remember, we always need to have our arm locked, one eye closed when we're finding and using our basic unit to measure. Okay, so we're going to switch gears and we're going to show a little sped up version of me drawing just so some of this stuff will click. So this is a quick video. I sped it up, but I only drew for a few minutes, and I did a still life very similar to what we just had. It's basically the same thing, stuff got moved. So I start off with the gesture. It was like a few lines, really quick to put down the objects, and you can see I'm already starting to sight stuff. I'm starting to figure out where stuff's gonna go. So it's good to kind of place things at first, and then you can start to measure things from there. So I'm measuring the height and width of objects. I'm kind of placing them in sometimes different boxes to help me out, to figure out how to make things more symmetrical, to figure out the widths versus the heights of objects. You know, I drew on this for maybe 10 minutes or so. I don't have all of it here. You know, at one point I ended up like erasing something completely and moving it, and those things are going to happen. You know, so right now you're just going to be gesturing, drawing really light, and measuring, and things will become more and more in focus. And once you get the proportions down, then we can start thinking about details, then we can think about values. But for right now, we need to be good at gesturing, getting the stuff down there, and then sight measuring it out. Okay, so that's our demo. Hope you all got some stuff on it. Get ready to start sighting, and we'll talk soon.